In property, there isn't many guarantees, but one of the guarantees is that you will always come up against unexpected hurdles. And here's how to overcome them. What's up guys, Dan Dravidi here. I hope you're all well. As ever, before we get started, if you're gonna be a huge favor and smash the like button and don't forget to hit subscribe and the little bell icon next to it. This week, the video is all about the unexpected hurdles that will come up through any property transaction and how to overcome them. So this video is relevant to absolutely everyone involved in property. It doesn't matter if you are literally just starting out and getting to find your feet, or you are moving on from your basic starting point and you're onto bigger things like large HMOs or commercial conversions or new build developments, or you're right at the other end where you're building multi-unit sites out of the ground, anything from sort of 10 plus really. No matter where you are, the hurdles that you will experience, which will be unexpected and feel like they are the end of the world, will always be there. In this video, we're going to talk about some of what those hurdles are, especially those that are early on, which can really test people to the point where they just give up and they don't carry on through property, right through to the hurdles that will make it seem like years of investing just hasn't been worth it, right through to then how you can become numb and pretty much bulletproof to any hurdle that will arise, because you know something will always come up and that there will always be a way around it, and eventually you will always achieve your goal. And the hurdles can actually mean that a lot of the people who are competing with you, or a lot of the people not bidding on certain deals, whatever it may be, can be a huge benefit to you when they're actually a negative to everybody else. So before we get into the detail, I suppose to generalize this, what am I talking about? And for everyone involved in property, and I don't care where you are on the spectrum, you will always get hurdles that are quite minor, things that can get out of control if you don't deal with it at the source, some things that are already out of control that you need to bring in professionals, and don't hesitate or don't delay that process anymore, get the experts in, right through to hurdles that have severe consequences. I'm talking about losing deals, having lenders call in loans and having sites become completely unviable because of small and medium and large hurdles. And one of the things that I learned really early on is even people who you think are working with you, like lawyers, can sometimes drop in hurdles which seem to be a complete 180 turn to go against everything that you're trying to achieve. And when the people that are working with you, that you're paying for their expertise advices, literally turn around and attempt to try and make the deal unviable, you can literally take that so personally that you think everyone is against you and the deal and the property world and the world of investing just isn't for you. And I can assure you that after years, and if not dozens, maybe hundreds of different hurdles that have come up and I've overcome them, it does actually start to become quite routine. The unexpected starts to become the expected. And when it comes up, it's nothing more than just another exercise that you have to go through the motions, being at the very top of the chain of everything where the buck stops, to overcome them. And you know, recently, if I use some of the examples where they're probably more relevant today for definitely people at the start of their property cycles, and it's the pandemic. So a lot of the people who are fairly new to property, who don't have cash, will start with the low entry points of property, which might be deal sourcing or rent to rent. Both I don't have a huge amount of experience in, but I do talk to people, network with people, and guide people as best as I can who are involved in these markets, who get themselves into situations where they want to literally turn their back and exit completely and walk away. And especially when you're at this starting point, these hurdles can be enough to literally stop you in your tracks. And this is why every 18 months or so, you see people come in all guns blazing over social media, posting about what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, even some of the deals that they're involved in, and then they literally go quiet because you do see a lot of these people just completely disappear. And if we come back to the pandemic, a lot of the rent-to-renters who are sourcing deals from landlords and signing agreements for 1 to 2 to 5 years they found themselves in a position where they were renting to a certain type of market, like the HMO professional market or the serviced accommodation market. And a lot of those individuals saw that market completely fall off the edge of a cliff. And a lot of people thought that this was the end. They couldn't afford the cash flow to keep paying for the landlord's rent. They couldn't afford all of the other costs associated with it. And I was getting messages from people about how do they exit these contracts that they've paid money for to make sure the landlord can't exit. They were then asking me how they exit. And my advice to anyone, not just these guys and not just anyone at the start of their property cycle, is you get into property with a view that you have a short-term and a long-term strategy. And it doesn't matter what is your primary goal, whether it be a short-term flip or a long-term rental. You have to be able to shift and change with market, legislation changes, all of those things, that when things do change, you can just alter the course of the deal because you've got a plan for both short and long-term goals. And rent to rent is really no exception to that, because if you're looking to start a viable, sustainable rent to rent business, which I personally don't think should be what people focus on. I think they should be involved in the deal, in buying the deal and taking control of the asset, which is where you can say buying the asset does give it to you. There's a grey area where the lease and the option to buy maybe gives you that same level of control. That debate is up in the air, and we're not going to debate that on this video. But if you are looking to build a sustainable business where you are taking on multiple units, targeted at one specific or multiple markets, then you want to be working with landlords and you want to be getting more deals from landlords. And if at the first sign of a downturn in the market or at the first sign of a little bit of difficulty, you just want to exit the contract and literally turn your back on all of your commitments, then very, very quickly, your reputation is going to come unstuck and you're going to struggle to get any other deal. Now, my advice to the people that were asking me was, you need to dig in, and I even did some videos on this, fight in the trenches and see this period through. And even though directly you might not get any income and it might cost you some money, when this pandemic or this downturn shifts back up into an upturn and some period of growth, and you're on the rampage to get some more deals, one of your biggest selling points can be that in the toughest part of the market seen in your industry for a very, very long time, you honored your commitment and you stuck to the contract. And even though it costs you money, you kept your end of the bargain. And I promise you, indirectly, that will pay you dividend over tenfold of anything else, any other loss that you could do by walking away from a contract. And it's that attitude that you need to take to any hurdle to overcome them in property. Because like I said right at the start of the video, there isn't many guarantees in property. I guess one of them is that don't rush to buy a deal because there will always be another deal. But the other will be you will always get hurdles that will really test your patience, your discipline, and also your ability to keep going. And hurdles can come in many shapes and sizes. I'll never forget, I learned a long time ago that when a lawyer wants to drop something in your lap that you're not going to like, they'll do it on a Friday afternoon about 5-6 o'clock so they can close their laptop and they will not respond to you until the next week. And I remember when I was doing my first few joint ventures that I was working with a lawyer who wasn't experienced in that sector, and they sent me some emails at the very last thing on a Friday, which meant that the whole deal was in jeopardy. And I wasn't able to do anything. I wasn't able to impulsively respond and deal with that until Monday. And that really destroyed my whole weekend. I went on a stag do and it sort of dominated my thought process the whole time. I thought I was going to lose these deals, but it wasn't the case. Every hurdle has a workaround, no matter how severe it seems at the time. And early on in property, every hurdle seems like it's the end of the world. And I can promise you one thing, that as you go on to do more deals and bigger deals and more complex deals, the hurdles get far, far bigger and far more intense. But your resilience to those hurdles becomes greater. And you will become so resilient that any hurdle, is just another part and parcel of the deal and your day-to-day life as a property investor. And you'll go from having to take a hit on monthly losses of a couple of grand at the most to having to step in to deals that builders have let you down on so severe that it's going to cost you tens of thousands of pounds just so you can honour your agreement to the investor or to the tenant that you've got lined up for it, whatever it may be. And you have to make those hard decisions that have a short-term impact on cash to gain long-term. And I wrote an article probably about 4 years ago now, it was in the YPN magazine, about how JVs can go wrong, but you can stop them from going bad if you step in to do the right thing. And in that set of circumstances, we paid a builder some money up front and we managed the process with him, but he did bullshit us throughout the first 4 to 5 weeks. And he was buying materials and kitchens and bathrooms and hiring equipment on our various accounts and using them for different jobs. So not had we only not seen a progress on the particular job, but we actually saw him do a lot of damage to the property, spend a lot of money elsewhere, and we ended up having to take him to court. And a £4,500 loss turned into a £7,000 claim that took nearly 2 years for him to eventually have to start paying his monthly fee, which of course he did pay and we eventually got paid back. But we had to step in short term to fund that project again. And we had an investor on that deal. So the investor saw a short term blip in their income. So we had to make good for our promise because our part of that deal was to manage the process and the builder, and it wasn't the investor's fault. It was our responsibility and we took the hit 100%. And did we earn money out of that deal? No, we personally lost, the investor didn't. But it became a story that we could tell about an example of when things go wrong, because proof in the pudding is in the eating, as they say. And everyone can talk a good game, but the reality of how people react is when the theory becomes the reality. The years go by, we can talk about FCA compliance issues and having to documents reviewed by non-FCA experienced lawyers who then make the wrong assumptions. But when you have the right people review the documents who have the right background and the right expertise, it costs you more money, but you actually go from a period of thinking that you're doing things wrong to actually you're doing things right and compliantly, right through to lenders calling in massive sums of money. I'm talking about a lender calling in £1.5 million worth of debt because a transaction had happened without their authority, and that was something as simple as adding a director onto a company, and that lender decided to call that loan in. So you think all of a sudden you're going to lose these properties because it was just the loan amount, not the property value, which was probably about 4 million quid. So you learn though how to overcome these sorts of things, and you just refinance with another lender and you tell them that what's going on with the old lender, and the lender wasn't happy that you added a director on without their permission and you didn't realise that, and the lawyer missed it. So there was some liability on the lawyer. All of these things will start to come up. The best thing that I can advise how to get around them is to never ever bury your head in the sand. And you see a lot of people talking about the glitz and the glamour of property really early on, and the true measure of property is not how much you buy, but it's the materialising the end results. And I've always said that. And there's people even locally to Norwich who will talk about how much property they've bought, and you can see that in their presentations from 2, 3, 4 years ago, some of the massive things that they were going to be doing, and those sites have now been repossessed by lenders and the investors. And you see them now on the market trying to be sold. And that's the reality of following the crowd, following the glitz and glamour, instead of following the viable projects, the end results. And just this week, we were going in for a planning application which had lapsed. I'd taken over the deal because it had lapsed with some former colleagues of mine, and with my experience, I can take it forward. And it went in recommended for approval, and the committee voted to refuse it, even though they were told that we would win it on appeal, we would claim costs, etc, etc. Now, I'm not going to do a video about that process, because the video that I want to do about that will be about how this decision at committee, even though it was completely flawed, will now give us the tool to negotiate a far more viable and profitable deal because of the complete incompetence of local committee members. So this is how a hurdle, and a very big one, which can stump your progress, can be turned around on its head to making you more money, a deal more viable and overall beneficial. And that is how you have to look at every single hurdle, as an opportunity. And I don't get me wrong, that's a lot easier to talk about than it is to do in reality, especially when you get massive hurdles, things that can really go against you. But you must always look at them as an opportunity, because that is what every single hurdle in property does eventually represent itself to be. So I hope you found that useful on a Sunday morning, talking about hurdles. There's lots of them about in the market. There's going to be many more to come. I've been reading this week about lenders withdrawing their loans after the exchange, which I cannot understand. That seems horrendous. Again, try and work with lenders who have got a good track record. People that you've worked with before. They won't be the cheapest. They might not even be the easiest to deal with. But if you've got a good history with those lenders, you know that they won't pull the funding at the 11th hour, which can come back to cost you way more. So that's it from me, guys. Hope you found the video interesting. If you've got some questions on this subject or any specific hurdles that you've started to face, leave me a comment below and I'll maybe even do a video on that specific hurdle. But I hope you found the content rich, and I'll catch you all on the next video.